So now let's talk about MoonDream's license and TOS, right? So the license for MoonDream is an Apache license 2.0, which is basically the normal standard Apache license nowadays. Everything there seems pretty normal. The idea is that you can use this product for anything that you want to use this product for, that you can add this product to any product that you're going to sell to a customer or client, and as long as you give the right attributions and that type of thing, everything is fine. Basically, they warranty absolutely nothing, right? But you can add this to your product and you can sell it to your customers and you get to deal with the warranty issues, which, right, yeah, that's the basic open source world. The issue is, in the modern world, is, the legality around technology products is just getting to be insane. I actually get some of my students, and they say, Eli, if you were 18 years old right now and you wanted to get in the technology industry, what would you go for? And I crap you not. I would be looking at the Juris Doctor. I would be looking at my law degree, and the reason is I think there is going to be more innovation in legal issues around technology than there is in technology itself. That is my honest opinion. And that's where we get into the terms of service, which bring up so many questions. Right, so the license seems to be straightforward. TOS has some tough, what are called indemnification clauses that definitely might be of concern, and the entire TOS, as far as I can read, seems overly broad. Now, I am not a lawyer. To be clear, I got my criminal justice degree years ago, and I've been reading legalistic crap for years, because again, that's the thing, one of the things that I care about. So I've read through this, and I just have to say, as a non-lawyer that's dealt with a lot of legal paperwork, there are some real questions here. One of the big things that's going to be coming up is the legality of the AI models and the legal ramifications of those going into the future, right? So when you think about MoonDream, right, there's a number of components, right? There's the MoonDream module, the package that you install with Python, right? So that's open source. But then there are the models. And then there's questions that are coming up, again, as OpenAI and other AI companies are sued over how models have been trained. And so there is an interesting question about what are the legal ramifications of using an AI model when you do not have transparency on how this thing has been trained and understand what legal minefield there might be there. There's some questions there. And again, this becomes more concerning when you read the TOS. My opinion on this, again, I think the TOS is legally stricter than MoonDream believes. Whether this is a practical issue, though, is anyone's guess. One of the issues you can be with being a good old stick in the mud who actually reads contracts and all that kind of thing is if it never goes to court, nobody cares. And so many times, like in the technical world, you're violating licensing, you're doing all kinds of stupid stuff. Like if it ever went to court, you'd be screwed, but it never goes to court, so nobody ever cares. So that's kind of gonna be one of the realities. Again, the reality of being a technology professional. Vic? Kay, he is the CTO. He is the CTO of MoonDream. So I posted, laughing about their TOS, on my LinkedIn account, and this is how he, again, the CTO of MoonDream, responded. Hey Eli, appreciate you checking out MoonDream. Just to clarify, those terms are for our free hosted API, which gives users 5K requests per day to try things out without setup. MoonDream itself is open source under Apache 2.0, so folks can self-host or use it however they like. The TOS is there mostly because one of our cloud credits partners required it. Totally agree though, always good to understand the fine print before using anything in production. Here's the thing. That's not what the TOS says. We're about to go through the TOS. And what he's saying here is this is for the API. So the TOS that I'm going to show you, that's for the API. But when you go and you find the TOS on their website, it does not appear to be legally restrained simply to the API, so be careful. So just to step through this process so you can see what I'm looking at here. So we go to MoonDream AI, and this brings up, basically their webpage, the open source VLM that runs everywhere. Well, speed walks everywhere. Let's just say it speed walks everywhere. Again, it's gonna get from point A to point B, but maybe not quite that fast. Anyways, we can scroll down, we can see some information about the different models here. It shows you the different capabilities, and we're gonna keep going down because that's not the part of the class that we care about right now. We are going to go down to their terms of service that are on their main page that are not behind any kind of, API gateway or anything like that. I'm going to click on that, and that is going to bring up the terms of service. And for me, it's coming up January 15th, 2025. So now let's pretend we're back in elementary school and we're going to read along with what this TOS says. So terms of service. M87 Labs is the developer of MoonDream. Thank you for using MoonDream, an open source vision language model designed to empower developers, researchers, and creators. By accessing or using our services, you agree to the following terms. If you do not agree, you may not use MoonDream. Now again, look at words, services. So it might be easy to say, well, the service, obviously that means the API. But is that the definition as they define it later in this TOS? Introduction. These terms of service constitute a legally binding agreement between M87 Labs and any person or entity who accesses or uses our website, moondream.ai, so the website itself, API services, that's what the CTO stated, artificial intelligence models, right, and related services, collectively the service. So what Vic the CTO said is that these terms of service are for the API services, right? It's only for the API. If you're using this locally, you don't have to worry about the terms of service. If we come here and we read the actual terms of service, it says no, if you're using the website, the services, the models themselves, or anything related, that this is a legally binding agreement between you and that company. And of course, in big, bold type, please read these terms carefully. By accessing or using this service, you agree to be bound by these terms and all applicable laws and regulations. If you do not agree with these terms, you must not access or use the service. And again, you're probably sitting there going, Eli, they're talking about the service. It's the API service, Eli. What can't you get through your head? Well, what I can't get through my head is definitions 2.1 key terms. Throughout these terms, we use certain defined terms. Quote, service. Service means all M87 Labs offerings, including but not limited to the MoonDream AI website and associated domains, API services, blah, blah, artificial intelligence and machine learning models, documentation tools and resources, any related services or features we provide. So they are specifically stating in this terms of service that the terms of service is far broader than simply the API services themselves. It's using anything that they are providing from their website. And again, we come to service description, 3.1 service overview. M87 Labs provides artificial intelligence and machine learning services, including but not limited to access to artificial intelligence models. So again, when we're using MoonDream and we're using the Python package that you're able to run, use pip, you're able to install it onto your system, right? That's one thing, but then the models are a separate thing, and it appears that this TOS relates to the models. And another thing that's interesting here with this TOS is you'll notice under account registration and security, account requirements, to access certain features of the service, you must create an account. Right, so a lot of times when you're going to be using products, you have to create an account, and then when you create the account, you check off that you read the terms of service, even though you haven't. The curious thing here is they're basically stating that you're able to access some of their services, the models, that type of thing, without necessarily creating an account. So simply by using their product, you're agreeing to this TOS. Now again, when we're taking a look at the TOS, one of the interesting things in here is intellectual property rights and license. 7.1 Apache license, the MoonDream software is distributed under the Apache license, version 2.0, under this license, and it gives you a number of things, what this license allows. So actually within this TOS, it is referencing the license. So again, it appears that the TOS is, part of the package that you're going to be agreeing to when you use MoonDream. Now I just kind of think this is cute. Under data rights and privacy, 9.1 data processing. D, we implement reasonable security measures. Hey, do you know what reasonable means? I have no idea what that actually means. E, we do not guarantee absolute security. Honestly, that's probably pretty normal for TOSs. That's probably about the best you're going to get from any organization, any vendor that you're going to be using their products. I just kind of thought this was cute, because frankly, that's honest at least. Now, another curious thing here is liability cap. If, notwithstanding the above, we are found liable for any losses or damages, our total liability shall not exceed the amount you pay for the service in the 12 months prior to the claim, or $100 if no fees were paid. So, if there are any problems with their services and you do get to go sue them, yay, you're going to get $100 out of it. Now this is where it's not so cute and I do get pretty concerned, right? Literally the last thing I showed you was their liability cap of $100. If they do something asinine stupid and you sue them, you can get $100 out of them, right? That is the max. The interesting thing here is part 12, the indemnification clause. 12.1, your indemnification obligations. So if you use their service, their website, yes, their API, their AI models, their other tools, right? This is one of the things you're theoretically agreeing to. You agree to indemnify, defend, and hold harmless M87 Labs and its affiliates, officers, directors, employees, agents, and licensors from and against any claims, liabilities, damages, judgments, awards, losses, costs, expenses, or fees, including reasonable attorney's fees, arising out of or relating to your use of the service, your content, violation of terms, obviously, your violation of any rights of another, obviously, your use of model outputs. So again, one of the things to be thinking about in this modern world with these AI models is we have not fully fleshed out what the legal, world of using these AI models are. Again, how they've been trained, what value there is to copyright holders, and the whole 9 yards. So if you're using MoonDream and you're putting out outputs, and for some reason that output you get sued by somebody else, right? One, you can only get $100 out of MoonDream, maybe on a good day, and beyond that, you're holding harmless all of M87 for any kind of legal issues that you might get into. Then we come down to defense obligations, which becomes very interesting. Again, your use of model outputs. I use the model, I get the output, I get sued by somebody, right? In connection with your indemnification obligations, we reserve the right to assume exclusive defense. So they can take over the defense for you. You agree to cooperate with our defense, fine. You shall not settle without our consent. If you get sued because of model outputs, you are not allowed to settle that lawsuit without their consent. And again, think about this in the modern technology world with a lot of these AI companies. They don't want any settlement, right? Because as soon as a lawsuit gets settled, that might be used, again, for future cases against the company. So it's in their best interest to not settle anything. So all of a sudden, your company, if you get into a legal issue that has anything to do with their particular product, you literally might not even be able to settle without their consent. We may participate in the defense at our expense. You shall reimburse our reasonable expenses. So they have the right to assume exclusive defense. You agree to cooperate. You can't settle without their consent, and then you have to pay them the reasonable expenses for if there might be something wrong with something like the model outputs that get you sued. I have to say, again, been doing tech for a long time, been reading a lot of these TOSs and contracts and things for a long time. Back when I started doing technology education back under Everyman IT, I literally had the H.264 license in my filing cabinet just to verify I was legally able to do streaming video and that wasn't going to run me into any issues, right? I've read a lot of TOSs. This one is kind of scary. This one is kind of scary. So one of the things that I would advise under a risk mitigation strategy, if you're going to be using MoonDream, is to have decent operational security and to be thinking about operational security whenever you're using these AI products. Basically what operational security means is that nobody in the outside world has any idea how your infrastructure operates, right? So basically when you think about security, right, physical security is locks on doors, fences, barbed wire fences, maybe guard dogs, that type of thing, right? You're physically keeping somebody from being able to access into a certain area. What operational security is basically where there are no numbers on any doors. So if a thief broke into a building, they have no idea where suite 200 is. Right? You know, if you have a building and you have a lot of like secretaries' offices, and then you have one office and that has the general in it, and that they have all the plans, the blueprints and everything for some military action that's going to occur. Basically, you just take all the numbers off of all the doors in the building. So if that little spy comes in, that little James Bond comes in and wants to steal the blueprints or whatever, the first thing they literally have to do is figure out where the hell room 200 is. Right? They broke into that secretary's room, and they broke into that bathroom, and they broke into that utility closet, and they broke into, right? It takes a long time to break into a lot of the wrong doors before you get to the right one. And so that's the idea of operational security. I would really be thinking about this nowadays in the real world of AI, is if you're using these products, especially the legalese these folks are using to protect their behinds, one of the things that I would say is think about operational security. Nobody outside of your organization needs to have any idea what the magic sauce is that allows your product to do whatever it is that it does. Basically, anybody outside of the department that's dealing with, this component of your product should necessarily know how any of it does what it does. So if lawsuits do come down the pike, you go, oh, look, customers of MoonDream or users of MoonDream are getting sued. Darn, glad we stopped using MoonDream yesterday, right? So that is one of the things I would say here. Now, I know this was a bit of a long class, and I know some of you might be thinking, oh, this is Eli just trying to do pomp and circumstance and making himself look cool. The thing that I really want you to understand, though, is a lot of founders and a lot of C-level executives at technology companies literally do not understand the contracts they're requiring people to sign. Again, one of the examples that I can have, one of my lived real-world examples, is I had a high-quality technology company, and they were literally flying me out. They're flying me out. They were paying for everything for multiple days for me to go and learn about their products, learn about their offerings, learn about how all of that works, be able to sit down with their engineers and have conversations and all that kind of stuff, right? So imagine my surprise of the day I'm supposed to take off, I literally get a non-disclosure agreement emailed to me and was told that if I didn't sign the non-disclosure agreement, that the trip was off. And that was an interesting couple of hours of discussion. Whereas like I am a YouTuber that your CEO invited to come to your facilities. You are literally paying me to come to your facilities to learn about your offerings so that I can tell that to my viewers. And you're giving me a pretty freaking strict non-disclosure agreement before I hop on the airplane. How does that make an ounce of sense? So again, when I sit here, and again, nothing against Vic, I'm sure he's a lovely human being, but one of the things you have to understand is when these C-levels, again, especially founders of these startup companies, they say, no, our TOS or our license, it doesn't really deal with that, it deals with the other thing. The other possibility is they literally haven't read their own damn contracts and they might not realize what they're having you sign up to. So that's one of the things, again, that's why you've got to read this paperwork and really go through it and think about what your risk tolerance is, before you go ahead. Again, I am an educational facility. I'm going to teach you folks this. I don't put anything into production. I don't ship any product. This is what I ship, so I'm more than happy to teach you folks this. And I think MoonDream is a fabulous product in many ways, but be careful.